Japan anime news powered by Newtype. Oshinoko has concluded, right? It seems that the anime is also in talks for a third season just as it's hitting its stride. But fundamentally, the story in the original work is progressing ahead. This is something that everyone is experiencing for the first time in the serialized manga, but honestly, given the current situation, I'm wondering what will happen with the anime adaptations of Oshinoko and Jujutsu Kaisen. For now, Full Metal Alchemist started its anime adaptation while the manga was still being serialized, and in the case of the first adaptation, it went beyond the manga's storyline, so it was original content. On the other hand, the version titled Full Metal Alchemist Hagaren was made faithfully according to the original work until the end. Right now, options are emerging, so Oshinoko is in a situation where it could expand imagination even more than this time's thing, and whether to do it or not is up in the air. Also about Jujutsu Kaisen. How is it? Is everyone reading the original? I read the original all the way to the end, but the last quarter of the original is completely off the rails. It's really chaotic. I think 2 volumes of the manga are coming out simultaneously in December, right? That's right, Jujutsu Kaisen. I believe those who are following it through the manga will get to see the ending. This week, I hosted an event called iMart, where people from the manga industry gathered. There, I had conversations with editors like Lin Shihei, who is in charge of works like Spy Family and Chainsaw Man. I also spoke with producer Fukushima from Cloverworks, the company that produces Spy X Family. During our conversation, I asked, is everything going to be okay for Jujutsu Kaisen moving forward? Since Lin isn't in charge of that, he just smiled. Honestly, if Spy Family continues to be adapted into anime, everyone will be happy. I also heard about the struggles related to the original movie scripts that are sandwiched between the anime adaptations. While discussing the difficulties, I thought, well, that makes sense. When I asked industry professionals about what they would do, they mentioned that those in charge of other works wouldn't speak out publicly. Regarding Oshinoko, there are many people overseas who are following the anime and wondering how it will turn out. I'm really fond of the way the serialization of Jujutsu Kaisen has been going crazy towards the end, and I would love for people overseas to see it just as it is. Now, I'm being careful about spoilers while saying this, but since it's a serialized work, I think it's okay to mention it because I know what happens. Is that all right? In Jujutsu Kaisen, they actually start fighting in a pachislot towards the end. I have no idea how to explain pachislot to people overseas. It's true. Right now, works like My Hero Academia and Jump have ended quite well. On the other hand, there are works that are going completely wild at the same time. The possibility of both existing simultaneously is fascinating. And all of that is going to be turned into anime and reach the world. I wonder how that will be handled. Please look forward to it. As for the emails from around the world, they are coming in much less than the emails I receive in 2 hours in my personal mailbox. This week, I've only received contact from KADOKAWA at the program's email address. Yoshida-san. It's me again, KADOKAWA. I'm sorry for bothering you again. Not at all. As long as you keep sending them, I will respond. I briefly thought that if there were no distributions other than the Japanese version, or if there were delays, it might just be my own post again, but it really turned out that way. Thank you for reading it again. No, thank you. As I mentioned, I'm currently in Japan for work, and I listened to the last distribution on the Chuo Line train. I apologize for the lack of romance. However, when walking around the Ginza area, it's filled with foreign languages, and sending from here feels like a post from abroad. Do you still think that way even if people from overseas come now? Even those who usually live abroad? That's right. Since my family home is in Ginza, I actually feel like I become like a foreigner when that happens. In the future, I believe that once the streaming goes well, we will surely receive reactions from overseas, so I'm looking forward to it. I really appreciate it. I would be happy if you could send an email to janime@1242.com. While I'm very interested in what kind of stories will come, I mentioned before about the discussion regarding the Barusu from Laputa during the Friday Roadshow. A few years ago, I talked about it with my daughters, but they just responded with a and didn't show much reaction. Both of them love Studio Ghibli, but it seems they prefer Totoro, Spirited Away, and Howl's Moving Castle over Laputa. Additionally, for example, in typical American concerts, People don't wave their hands or glow sticks in unison like they do in Japan, so they might not understand the sense of solidarity when the audience does something fun together. However, this does seem to have an Asian sensibility to it. It seems that people who are not raised in Japan may not understand the sense of transience and wabi-sabi that comes with cherry blossoms, as seen in anime like 5 centimeters per second. Personally, I wish they could appreciate that feeling. But my wife, who is not Japanese, mentioned that cherry blossoms are boring as a flower for viewing since they fall so quickly. In Japanese terms, she expressed it as being poor value for money. That said, there might be quite a few people overseas who understand this Japanese sensibility. If it's Yoshida-san, I imagine he might have heard such reactions. What do you think? Recently, I heard that Americans used to be quite assertive, often arriving 15 minutes late, and it was common not to reply to emails unless there was something to add. For Japanese people, it's normal to at least reply with something like understood. With messaging apps becoming commonplace worldwide, like Line in Japan and WhatsApp overseas, I've heard that a sense of sorry for leaving you on red has emerged among Americans. However, I don't have many American friends with whom I communicate frequently, so I'm not sure about that. What do you think? Recently, my college daughter enjoyed an anime called Yubisaki to Renren, which is titled A Sign of Affection in English. I see. By the way, Yubisaki to Renren is an animation about a person with hearing impairment who communicates using sign language. My high school daughter liked Horimiya. It's about a seemingly introverted kid who actually has amazing tattoos and piercings. In Japan, tattoos and piercings carry a lot of meaning, but I wonder what the perception is like overseas. The fact that the settings are in college and high school resonated with us. Well, everyone likes relatable things, right? By the way, regarding the English distribution of Lingueene, Kusuriya no Hitorigoto is kept in Japanese, while the English title, The Apothecary Diaries, was not translated. It was amusing that everything else was in English, but that part remained in Japanese. I received many emails from across countries about this. I see. However, Yubisaki to Renren and Horimiya are really great shoujo manga, even though Horimiya could also be considered a manga with a shoujo sensibility, even if it's not strictly shoujo. I once heard from someone involved in editing shoujo manga that it's interesting how shoujo manga is fundamentally built around the idea of being passionately loved by a handsome, wealthy man, which is also true for Harlequin novels. This is basically the foundation. When you think about how much effort and determination are depicted in these stories, it raises questions about how they relate to the world at large. There are quite a few countries where the concept of doing your best doesn't even exist, which leads to discussions about how shoujo manga might have the potential to become a global content phenomenon. I found myself agreeing with that perspective. Handsome characters do appear in both Yubisaki to Renren and Horimiya. Wealthy characters don't show up as much, but the theme of being passionately loved is definitely present. I wonder if that's a universal theme around the world. If you think about it, Cinderella fits that mold too. So, when it comes to women from overseas, I might not have the most connections. But I mentioned that I went to an anime event in Abu Dhabi, right? There was a girl dressed as Ochako from My Hero Academia who was constantly filming TikToks, and I was really curious about her. I really want to find that TikTok. It must be up somewhere. If anyone finds it, please let me know. Also, is there information about the rich kid from India on X? That's quite important news for this week, isn't it? I remember seeing something in a hotel in India. It was a post from Janime. I don't know when it started airing, but it seems like it took at least 10 years for this new series to come out. After a gag about using elevators in a department store, there was a kind of punchline saying, "In places like this, let's not play around and do things properly," which felt very fitting for the current infrastructure education in India. That said, I was shocked when I saw it in a hotel in Delhi 10 years ago. Thank you for the comment from Reina. People in India have their own unique perspective and way of creating things. After all, we are saying that RRR is interesting just from our viewpoint. It's really fascinating how content has become so easily cross-border thanks to streaming, leading to various developments. Speaking of which, this podcast is also supposed to be crossing oceans. This program is a podcast that delivers anime information to the world through the multilingual audio translation tool Lingueene. Based on the latest anime information gathered by the editorial team of KADOKAWA's anime magazine, Newtype, I, Hisanori Yoshida, will share insights about Japan's anime scene and culture with the world. This episode was recorded on November 19th, 2024. Additionally, translations are done using the multilingual audio translation tool Lingueene. Please note that non-Japanese languages may contain inaccuracies due to AI translation. When posting on social media, I would appreciate it if you could include the hashtag #JANIME, especially when discussing current topics about India. Now let's dive into this week's latest anime information. In terms of the latest anime news, first of all, there's been talk about how amazing episode 7 of Dandadan was. I was really surprised. The quality was like that of a theatrical release, and if it's reached this level, it's going to create a buzz about how incredible the movie version will be, and you can watch it for free. There's a character called Acrobatic Sarasara, which can be referred to as a yokai, right? In the case of Dandadan, it's more like a monster or a strange being that appears. And the backstory is revealed, showing that there's a reason for how it became that way, which is an incredibly touching story. Koji Seko is the scriptwriter. If we're talking about scripts, I think Banana Fish was also by Koji Seko, and he's definitely one of the people who creates amazing works that are now considered popular. The storyboard and animation director Shuto Enomoto is quite remarkable this time. It seems this is his first time drawing a storyboard, right? Isn't that amazing? I remember watching the live-action version of Fireworks, Should We See It from the Side or the Bottom, for the first time and being so impressed that I noted Shunji Iwai's name in the end credits. And it seems this is his storyboard debut. He's an incredible person. Originally, he worked on Yuasa's project Ride Your Wave, right? He also worked on Masaki Yuasa's films like Inu O and Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, and he was involved in Heaven's Delusion as well. It seems he had a moment of awakening to movement during his university days. Right now, in this year's Newtype, there is a feature on Dandadan. There is a Japanese blog service called Note, and an interview is currently published there. I'm surprised by how much of a newcomer they are. It feels like there are geniuses like this. Dandadan Akusara is trending globally, right? In this issue of Newtype, there are many other interviews with related parties, so I hope you'll take a look. The content on Note is also available in English on the Anime News Network site, so for those listening in English, please be sure to check it out. There are a lot of news coming out of the anime world this week. First, let's talk about Beyblade. How is it? I think many people in Japan know about it since it created a trend here. But is it going to be popular worldwide as well? Apparently, it seems to have collaborated with FC Barcelona, a prestigious soccer club. I wonder what that means. I'm not from the Beyblade generation, and I'm not well versed in soccer, so I just feel like saying that's it. Another thing is that Otsuka Pharmaceuticals' new commercial is using the Gekiti from Sakura Wars. They haven't released any Sakura Wars collaboration products, right? It's just the music being used. It seems that Otsuka Pharmaceuticals' new commercial for body maintenance is like that. Interesting. So, do you know Reiji Matsumoto? He has created many works, including Galaxy Express 999, Space Battleship Yamato, and Captain Harlock, which are very popular in France. He actually collaborated with Daft Punk in the past to create a music video, and the 4K remastered version of Interstellar 555 will be screened in theaters worldwide in December. Interstellar itself premiered at the Cannes Film Festival on May 18, 2003. I had no idea at that time that Japanese anime was spreading around the world. I was watching MTV or something, and I was really into anime. I vividly remember being surprised when suddenly Reiji Matsumoto's work came on and thinking, what is this? It's amazing that it has become such a topic of discussion. Well then, it's currently airing. On this season, it stands alongside Dandadan. Also, ReZero is quite impressive this season. It seems that a special exhibition on Chi, the movement of the Earth, will be held at the National Museum of Emerging Science and Innovation in March 2025. They will introduce the transition from the geocentric theory to the heliocentric theory, alongside highlight scenes from the anime Chi. The National Museum of Emerging Science and Innovation has really interesting exhibitions every time. Additionally, it seems that a special PV has been released for a collaboration episode of Detective Conan titled The Murder Case at Rampote. Edogawa Rampo is someone who can be said to have written Japan's first detective novels. His name is actually derived from Edgar Allan Poe, which is a well-known fact. The big news this week is that Detective Conan is finally doing a collaboration episode with Edgar Allan Poe. By the way, I'm not sure if I should mention this in the podcast, but it seems that Sony Group is trying to acquire KADOKAWA. There have been reports about this. Up to this point, it's true. However, I haven't met with Newtype yet. Indeed. What will happen with this? If Sony Group and KADOKAWA come together, there is a possibility of creating a huge media group, which would be a significant shakeup for the anime industry. But is it okay to say this? So that was this week's anime news. Well, this is the ending of Yoshida Hisanori's Japan anime news powered by Newtype. Nippon Broadcasting System is a company that was once almost bought by a company called Livedor. When posting your thoughts about the program on social media, please use the hashtag JAnime. If you have any comments about the show or anime news you want me, Yoshida, to discuss, please send them via email. The email address is janime@1242.com. I feel bad just doing that to KADOKAWA, so I'll speak freely with that in mind, but I got married right around the time when Livedor was about to buy us. That was almost 20 years ago. At that time, what was trending in Japan was, as I mentioned earlier, Howl's Moving Castle. My colleagues from the company organized a second party for a wedding. Since Nippon Broadcasting is basically a company that jokes around, the second party had a subtitle, which was Shareholders Moving Castle. With that subtitle, it was really a silly thing they were doing. But everyone thought it didn't really concern us at the scene, so everyone was just smirking and having a bit of fun while doing it. Then, of course, we were asked to send emails to the people we wanted to invite. So we were told to send emails. And we all sent a mass email to everyone in that folder. The moment we sent it, we realized that the president was included in that list. The president legendary DJ Akinobu Kamebuchi is involved. I sent a message during a very busy time, and I thought, oh no, but then I received a reply from Kamebuchi-san faster than anyone else, saying, due to recent disturbances in my life, I cannot attend. It was something like, thank you for the invitation to what sounds like a very enjoyable gathering. He's a great president. He checks his emails properly and even responds to the silly emails from regular employees, which shows it's a good company. Nippon Broadcasting is currently walking its own path without being bought out, or rather, it's walking within a group. The email address is janime@1242.com. Well then, I'll bring you the latest anime news again next week. This was Nippon Broadcasting announcer Hisanori Yoshida. Perhaps next week Nippon Broadcasting will be not available.